Hi, I'm Chips from Singletrack World, and I am the editor-at-large, co-founder, co-owner, coffee maker, and I'm here to introduce you to the company and just kind of where we've come from and where we are today.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm the publisher here at Singletrack, and I guess that means that whereas Chips gets to decide what you guys get to read in the magazine, I kind of get to decide whether or not we can afford it or not.
Basically, all the good magazines that we grew up with and influenced us as mountain bikers in the mid-90s had closed. So the ones that we felt had the sort of the spirit of mountain biking in them weren't really commercial enough to be pursued by the bigger publishers. And we just wanted a magazine that we wanted to read, and no one was doing it. So we thought, okay, well, how hard can it be? Quite hard.
Well, it's interesting. In the very early days, Singletrack wasn't a magazine at all. It was just a website. And it was in answer to the decline in print magazines for actual grown-up mountain bikers, which paints a picture that we're all super serious. We never were. It's just that a lot of the magazines that existed at the time in the late 90s and the early 2000s were more aimed at people starting mountain biking, and there were more how-to magazines rather than magazines for people who already knew how to ride. So we decided we had to do this when we identified that gap in the market. We decided that we would start with a website, and we did. We did that for a year. That was gofarmtb.com. But ironically, we couldn't make any money at all. So we realized after a year that we had to put Singletrack into print, because fundamentally at that time, that was the only way we could make any kind of economic sense.
Yes, basically we put out a picture of issue one's cover and a list of contributors that we had or we hoped would write for us. And that was about it, really. We didn't really have an idea of the stories or the content. We kind of knew where we wanted to take it, and we put that out there. And within a couple of weeks, we had 400 people who had signed up, given us money in advance, which basically helped pay for our printing bill. And we thought, well, we're going to have to do it now, aren't we? We had no thought about what came after that, like a second issue. Everyone has one magazine in them. Everyone has a book inside them, and they have probably a first album. And then where the second book, second album, second issue come from, you have to find out when you get there, really. People gave us their hard-earned cash, and we thought we'd better get on with it. Fundamentally, we've never really been publishers as such. We are enthusiastic mountain bikers who produce a magazine. There was never anything strategic about why we wanted to produce the magazine and why we wanted it to contain what it does, because our target market was experienced mountain bikers who don't really read magazines because they don't need to be told how to ride. Not a great strategic thing to do, really, but there are enough of those riders out there. We just had to find them all and pin them down and get them to buy a magazine.
Well, they haven't really. We're still a magazine for grown-ups. We're still a magazine for people who already mountain bike, who know how to mountain bike and just want to be inspired to do more. That's who we were when we started, and it's who we are now. So yes, very much not a lot has changed in 25 years.
I was on a multi-day riding trip in the Lake District with a bunch of friends, and we were on top of a big mountain, sort of miles from the nearest town, let alone bike shop, and someone's pedal came off the axle, trip ending mechanical. And I managed to get enough phone signal to text Benji in the office. He posted something on the forum, and within about 15 minutes, he'd had a reply from a reader who lived nearby, who had a spare pair of pedals, and he was quite happy to come down to the pub where we were staying in the evening and, send them back when he finished with them. And that really kind of brought it home that Singletrack is a community in the genuine sort of sense of things. If you read Singletrack, if you post on Singletrack, then you're part of it. You're part of us.
Can I sum up what Singletrack means to me? Now, I can show you what it means to me. There we go. That's what it means to me. I've got it tattooed permanently on my arm.
I think we helped sort of create a community when mountain biking to that point in the 90s, although it was popular and it was a growing sport, it was very hard to get information. It was also very hard to feel part of a scene. Unless you went to the bike races, it was very hard to think that there were other people out there doing it as well as you. And with our massively successful forum, we showed that we're all part of the same scene. Even if you never bumped into mountain bikers in your local area, it didn't mean they weren't out there. And now you could chat to them, and you could find that there were people around the corner or people that rode in your local forest at weekends. Or equally, if you weren't into riding with other people, you could find out that there were loads of other solitary mountain bikers exploring the hilltops, and you kind of, again, felt part of this community.
Mountain biking for me has always been about where it can take me. It wasn't about racing, it wasn't about downhilling, it wasn't about any particular discipline. It was about taking me places that I couldn't get to on foot, and it still is. I guess what's changed is my attitude to mountain biking is it's something I do for fun. I guess in the early days, mountain biking was something I did for fun, but it was also to keep me fit. These days, the keeping me fit part, it's simply a side effect of actually having fun on a bike. Quite an important one, I think, although I would say that, wouldn't I? Anyone can claim that they're independent, but the thing is, you can't be independent without the trust of your audience, and I think that's one of the strengths of Singletrack, is that we are a trusted independent voice. People trust what we say, and that's always been the case. We've always tried to maintain that level of integrity, that what we say, we genuinely believe.
I think there's always going to be room for independent publishers, just because they aren't following the script. They're writing about things that they find interesting, and not necessarily those which are the most commercially lucrative or the sort of lowest common denominator features. They're more like independent record companies, where they will sign upcoming bands that the major labels will ignore because they don't see enough potential growth from that genre of music or that style of band. And the same thing with us. We kind of launched Singletrack to aim at those readers who didn't necessarily buy magazines. They kind of were experienced enough, they knew enough about the sport, they didn't need to be told how to ride or even where to ride, but they were more interested in the story behind the scenes. And we still do that. Our content isn't particularly strategically planned out. We don't go, oh, well, this issue comes out this time of year, we should have this, feature on lights in October. We review things as we've had enough time on a product to test it. And that may be 3 months, maybe 6 months. Equally with topics that we write about, it's whatever we're thinking about at the time. It's something that we find interesting. We've always assumed, gambled, that our readers are going to be interested in it too. And we're pretty much correct, because we are our own readers.
It's just, there's an endless list of what we could do if we actually had the resources to do it. We're not short of ideas, just short of cash, isn't it? That's always the problem.
I think I would mercilessly track down all of my favourite writers who've written stories over the years in mountain bike magazines and outdoor magazines and elsewhere, and basically hound them until they come and write for us, because there's a lot of amazing writers out there who've written fantastic stories, but unfortunately it doesn't really pay well enough for for those people to earn a living. And I'd like to be able to pay them enough to get them to write stories for us.
We did a black and white cover once when we were on the newsstand, and when the newsstand was super important to us. We did a really nice black and white cover. We were warned that this would be bad and our sales would be hit by at least 10% if we did a black and white cover. But we disagree with, no, it's super cool. It's a rider going down some stone steps. It looks brilliant. Trust us, it'll be fine. Our distributor would say, nope, it's going to take 10% straight off. And lo and behold, it did exactly that. Yeah, it was one of the worst selling issues that we put on the newsstand. Black and white covers, apparently they really don't work. Well, I don't know any Latin, really. Well, that's not true. I know a little bit, but I wasn't allowed to do Latin when I was at school. They wouldn't let me. They just gave me more English to do. They thought that was for the best. Probably was, to be fair. When I was riding with a bunch of friends before we made Singletrack happen, as you do, if there's a bunch of your mates regularly getting together, we kind of wanted to give ourselves a name, and we came up with a Latin name for our club. It was Clunas Colossi. Okay, now those of you who speak Latin will understand what that translates to. It effectively translates to calloused buttocks. So that's the closest I can get to any kind of Latin related to mountain biking.
I'm going to have to look this up. Tantum crustulum potest non salvare nunc. Only cake can save us now.
Well, I think the obvious one is issue 1 of Singletrack, just deciding to launch this thing. Yeah, we very naive way back in 2000, 2001. So, yeah, I mean, we even decided to print 10,000 copies of issue 1, having only sold 400 subscriptions and having no distribution, because the number 10,000 sounded about right. That was dumb. When print became super expensive, when paper prices started to go through the roof, when the pressure was on financially for us to try and make savings, we actually decided to print the magazine on more expensive paper rather than doing the publishing of using cheaper paper. It's kind of a weird thing when we're trying to save money, but in conjunction with a whole bunch of other things, that kind of worked. Maintaining the quality of Singletrack, perhaps when others were going in the opposite direction, was probably, well, actually not dumb. That worked.
If I had to explain Singletrack to aliens who just landed, I'd say, well, it's like a magazine about spaceships, written by people who really like spaceships.
I don't know what they've taught me about people, but my attitude to people who ride bikes is instantly several levels up on the general population. I think one of the things I've noticed is riding bikes tends to be apolitical. Political beliefs and political stuff that divide us when we're not riding, that, in today's climate of politics being a very black and white thing, I think when you get together with a bunch of people and ride bikes, politics and that sort of stuff is one of the last things that ever raises its head. There's much more in common with people who ride bikes than divides them, I guess, is the thing that I've learned. It sounds a bit cheesy, doesn't it? That, bikes bring people together. If more people rode bikes, I think the world would be a better place.
I'm hoping to do more of the same, really. What I would like to do is continue the magazine and to distill it down to those things which people look to us for. So those in-depth articles, big, long, well-written articles, beautiful photos printed on lovely paper. And I'm keen to do that better, because I think there are still readers out there who want to read that long-form content. And there's also writers and photographers who are finding it harder and harder to get their work published. And I want to track them all down, and I want to give them an opportunity to have their work in print.
Well, I guess I don't know what I'd say to them, but what I can say is that it feels the right thing for us to do at this time. Singletrack has always been by mountain bikers, for mountain bikers, and it just feels right that we actually take that extra step now and allow our readers to actually become owners of Singletrack. It's grown beyond just us now. It's something bigger. It's more than the sum of the people that own it. It's a sum of the people who contribute to it. It's a sum of the readers who read it. It's a sum of the community. And so it feels right to me that this is what we do for our next step, that we actually go to the readers, to our audience, and say, well, this isn't just for you. You can actually own this as well. You can become part of Singletrack.
Well, I'd say that as a team, we've always been painfully transparent in all of our dealings in terms of how we've allocated resources, how we've spent money, and that's only going to continue because we have no corporate structure. We just have a small team of bike enthusiasts who are trying to do the best magazine and best website, best content they can. And I think that any investment we get in, you will see exactly how that is used because we have nowhere to hide. We are just a tiny team of mountain bikers in an office in Yorkshire.